In a world of third person shooters, it's hard to stick out from the rest of the bunch with their innovative gunplay, intricate upgrade systems, or very immersive worlds with a lot to look at and collect. While Pragmata's main thing that separates itself from other third person shooters is its robotic child companion, there's a lot of other things, in my opinion, that turn it from a decent game into something that's truly special. In today's video, we'll be discussing every aspect of Pragmata and how everything comes together to make it a one of a kind game. Alright, let's get the boring basics out of the way. He was on a lunar base all alone after his crew was wiped out. The only thing that stands between him and a timely death by the corrupt robots is DI-03367, also known as Diana, who helps Hugh by hacking the robots so he can attack their weak spots and stop them in their tracks. Hugh has a choice of 4 different weapons he can keep in his immediate inventory, each with their own unique attributes, and Diana can be equipped with certain modules that help take down enemies with their different methods of attack. Apart from all that, players can explore the 5 main sectors of this game for upgrade materials and other goodies. Alright, let's talk about the main gimmick of Pragmata, the number one thing that separates it from every other third person shooter, Diana's ability to hack. This feature works so well in this game for a few reasons. Number 1, it's a fairly simple method of attack. It's not like the player has to memorize a complex pattern every time they fight an opponent. All they have to do is navigate the technical maze and boom, their opponent's vulnerable. By not overcomplicating the hacking, players can divert just enough attention to it without it being a major distraction that gets in the way of shutting down the robots once and for all. It's a very manageable aspect that constantly engages the player, but doesn't overwhelm them thanks to its simplicity. Not to mention, the player can also customize their hacking style with the different modules they can put on Diana, which adds on another layer of customizing that's not overbearing or even necessary, but since it's so fun to hack in this game, players will definitely take advantage of these upgrades. Speaking of customization, there's also different outfits and suits players can unlock for the dynamic duo, and I got them as soon as I could. I absolutely love them. I love the Diana outfits where she has a little headset. It was adorable, and a nice nod to the fact she's a robot. I like Hugh's new suits too, but I wish they were a bit shinier like Diana's new outfits. I also like that Diana's later outfits made her look more like a kid and not a robot. It symbolized her understanding of what it's like to be a human in sentience. Not to mention, most of her robot costumes come from Cabin, another robot, so of course he would pick the more synthetic outfits to his kin. In terms of the gunplay, while simple, it still is pretty fun, and players are going to have to think about what kind of weapons they want to use for whatever situation they may find themselves in. Luckily for them, each gun in this game has its own unique use and purpose, so even though there's 4 different gun categories, the weapons themselves differ in their stats and usability. For example, if players want to pack short range damage quickly, they can choose the shotgun for battles with multiple enemies with decent health, or for battles with an enemy with a giant health bar, they can choose the Charge Piercer, which does the most damage but has to be charged up. So that's why it's wise to use it during a 1v1. That's not to mention the 4th gun slot, with each of those firearms having very unique abilities, like the decoy gun that lets players place down a replica of themselves to distract enemies, or turrets that automatically shoot enemies without the player's input. The caveat to all this is that all of these guns have limited ammo, so players can't constantly spam them against their enemies. There has to be genuine thought behind when to use what, and I think this formula worked wonders with Pragmata. It encourages players to explore so they can find ammo or the gun that they prefer, and these weapons are scattered plentifully across the map, so it's not like there's going to be a lot of moments where the player is dying to find another firearm. Even if that does happen, players have their primary weapon, which never runs out of ammo, so they're never completely defenseless, rather just not packing as much heat as they prefer. Speaking of the primary weapons, the rifle in this game absolutely sucks. The pistol is way better. I cannot think of one good reason to choose it over the grip gun. The grip gun requires the player to be more accurate with their shots, sure, but the amount of damage it does is way too high to pass up. While the upgrades to Hugh's guns and Diana's hacking felt meaningful, I couldn't say the same to the general upgrades. For me, it felt like they were absolutely necessary. Like, as I kept upgrading Hugh and Diana throughout the game, the amount of damage I was doing to enemies was the same. It never felt like I had that much of an advantage against the robots. It'd be nice if I could have gotten a significant boost in damage or health after collecting a bunch of materials from the explorable areas, as a way to reward those that went out of their way to leave no stone unturned. The boss battles of this game were absolutely insane. Hugh and Diana taking down these huge robots with just some guns and hacking was so adrenaline pumping and engaging, nothing can stop those two. I also really enjoyed how none of them have a cheap trick that prevents players from damaging them at any given point. If the player knows how to take down their opponent with style and ease, the game doesn't get in the way to nerf the player. Sure, the first boss has those annoying red shields that block off hacking, but they can be taken down without too much difficulty. Eight's fight was amazing. It had its really tough moments, like where she just rains down a shit ton of projectiles, but it wasn't insanely difficult. I generally felt like the patterns made sense and nothing was random. It pushed me to really think about my strategies without having to really break my brain. The final boss fight wasn't really that exciting. I wish there was a few more challenging hacking puzzles for that section. It would have made it a bit more interesting. In any case, I feel like I can't complain about it too much considering how stimulating 8's boss fight was. Exploring the areas for collectibles was so satisfying, but also very easy. Not a lot of them were in hard to reach places. I guess Capcom wanted to keep things focused primarily on the gunplay and hacking for this game, and that's understandable, especially considering how fun they are. This is further proven by the fact players could get an upgrade that allowed them to see every pickup and secret close to them early on in the game. Capcom didn't want players constantly scurrying around looking for stuff instead of investing their time with the high stakes combat. Anyways, while I liked collecting filament and the other materials that I could use to upgrade my gear, nothing beat the REMs, small gifts the player can give to Diana. Seeing Diana happy was reward enough, but to also see her interact with her new toy was also so wholesome and made exploring every inch of the base so worth it. Diana loves her gifts so much, she'll oftentimes give Hugh a drawing to show her appreciation, and man, I love receiving one of those each time I gave her an REM. It was just so freaking cute, like, come on, how can you not love this? While we're here, you can also talk to Diana whenever they're in Cradle, and they can even play a game of hide and seek. Just when you think this game can't get more wholesome, they hit you with something like that, and it just makes everything in life alright. Speaking of navigation, having fast travel spots in each of the sections was much appreciated considering how integral the Cradle is to this game, so players don't have to constantly worry about getting back to Sanctuary or worry about getting back to where they left off since they don't have to start from the beginning of the level. One more thing about the movement, I enjoyed the ability to dodge and hover in air with Hugh's thrusters. Not only were they a lot of fun to use in combat, but they also felt very smooth to use and were incorporated quite well into the parkour of this game. Instead of Hugh doing a combat roll, he was able to quickly evade in a direction without breaking sight of the enemies, which allowed the player to continue hacking and shooting their opponents, albeit with a slight caveat since they had to accommodate for the rapid movement. They added a little kick to the fight without being a hassle to use. Aside from running around the sectors, players can also use training simulations to sharpen their skills and get sweet rewards like cabin tokens and filament. These sims were a small but very nice addition to this game to add on to the playtime without having to stretch out the story or certain parts of the campaign. Similarly, there's these sections in the game where players take on a grand challenge like having to face an onslaught of tough enemies for a great reward, and these were a lot of fun. Their difficulty scale was in line with the upgrades and skills the player should have already gained by the time they reached the general area, so players could have done all of this as soon as they reached them without having to go back later in the game to take them on, like I did. They were like mini bosses just in case the regular battles weren't exciting enough for players, and they got me closer to getting the next Hugh and Diana skins, so they were so worth it. After the player beats the game, they're given access to Unknown Signal, which grants them passage to a hidden chamber in the Cradle, where they had to pass 10 challenges to get some sweet rewards. They'll have to find everything in the 5 sectors first, and beat the bosses again, but afterwards, they can take on the challenges as they like. Unknown Signal was pretty fun, all things considered. I was planning on 100%ing the game anyway, but having a bit of a bonus was great considering how much I loved this game and getting new cosmetics for Hugh and Diana. The challenges themselves were pretty much just more fleshed out levels from the training simulation, with more of a mix between the combat and movement, so it does push the player to use all their abilities to the max. I will say though, there's a decent amount of cheese the player can pull off in these stages, so they weren't really that hard to get through, but they were fun stages nonetheless, and the rewards were so worth it. Aside from Unknown Signal, players also gained access to Lunatic Mode and New Game Plus. I didn't play Lunatic Mode due to the fact I didn't have access to all my costumes from the start. I had to lock them all over again, which really pushed me away. I wanted to play the game again on a much harder difficulty with my new outfits, but oh well, what can you do? Alright, let's move on to the story, and I'll start by giving a small summary just to refresh everyone's minds. Our main protagonist Hugh is on the moon to explore an anomaly with the software in one of the lunar bases with his crew, but the AI takes over It decimates everyone but Hugh. After he wakes up from a huge fall, he finds a robot that looks just like a little kid that helps him fend off against the evil AI. Hugh needs to make contact back with Earth and hopefully get back home, while Diana likes to explore all around the base and is just a helpful robot in general. So the two agree to have each other's backs. The duo run into 8, another childlike robot that pleads to be freed only to hijack their mission and infect them with a deadly version of filament, a material used around the base. After Diana is healed, they learn that her and 8 were made as a way to cure Dr. Higgins' daughter from a lethal disease, only for his daughter to be killed after testing for the cure had begun. 8 didn't want his plan to go unnoticed, so she destroyed all of the crew in the base and intended to wreak havoc on Earth with Hugh and Diana's quote-unquote help. The duo find 8 and deactivate her, but unfortunately, only Diana is able to make it back to Earth because Hugh wasn't able to heal himself from the deadly filament. The setup is cliche. Pragmata is far from being the first story to have an evil AI attacking humans for some kind of mishap, whilst befriending another AI that helps them throughout the story and learns about what it means to be a human. But I don't think that AI has ever been a young kid, and I think it makes a lot of sense in this context. After all, a new AI and children are learning all kinds of things about the world they live in, and are constantly trying to make sense of why things are the way they are. They're just so curious and adventurous. Speaking of which, Diana acts very much like a 7-year-old child with how energetic and whimsical she can be. She has this need to explore everything, no matter how important or insignificant. Hugh was also great. A headstrong, level-headed guy that makes for a wonderful dad and sacrificed himself for humanity? Yeah, I can totally get behind that. I also liked how Hugh has reason for developing such a bond with Diana. He was abandoned as a child, but adopted by a loving and caring family that looked after him. Hugh understands that Diana is more than just an AI. She's very sentient, and he knows the feelings of being left out, and also of being loved and accepted. So, while a significant reason for why he tagged Diana along was for her survival, it can be argued he didn't want to leave her alone because of his past of being abandoned, and then found by warmth and tenderness. Even though Capcom knew players were going to get attached to Diana, they also made sure their main guy was likable, so players really felt the bond between the two, and actually cared about what he had to say. It made the ending impactful. I was actually sad that Hugh was gone and couldn't keep his promise to show Diana the beach and show her the rest of the world. Okay, 2 more things about the story, then we'll move on. First of all, I like the flow of the story. It doesn't give the player too much information all at once. Capcom knew how to pace the cutscenes, meaningful dialogue between Diana and Hugh during gameplay, and other pieces like the text the player can pick up. It also helped that not every lore moment had very important pieces in it, so players could miss or misinterpret a thing or two and still know what was going on. A player could just go through the game and watch all the cutscenes without reading any of the supplemental material and still know what was happening. Secondly, does this story remind anyone of Sonic Adventure 2? We have a character that lost someone that was near and dear to them and wanted to let humanity know about the pain they caused, a base full of advanced technology and space, and a young, blonde, playful girl. Seriously, let me know. Okay, so if the player decides to go through Unknown Signal, they'll get a new ending if they equip the prototype module to Hugh, and here it is.
Welcome back. What's this? Traveling alone today?
Yeah, that's really disappointing. Now, I wasn't expecting some grand scene where Hugh realizes he's alive and tries to contact Diana, but it would have been nice to have some kind of visual rather than just a blank screen with Captain's voice. That leaves too much to the imagination, in my opinion. Oh well, at the very least, it is nice to know Hugh lives and the possibility of Pragmata 2 is within reason. Since Pragmata takes place in a futuristic base on the moon, everything's very high tech, and there's a lot of lunar imagery, both reminiscent of a lot of other science fiction pieces of media. There's a lot of white and silver reinforced steel all over the place. There's just so much metal, and more metal. Now, while that does make sense and is totally fine, the developers wanted to give players more than just artificial compounds, so they had sections where players could explore the actual rocky surface of the moon, and other natural looking places like the beach and forest sections of this game. I really enjoyed these areas. They look great, were a nice break from the metallic nature of the visuals, and work with the story. After all, Hugh felt outnumbered by the robots that constantly attacked him, and having a heavy suit on 24/7 didn't help him feel organic, but these small pieces of nature made him feel human again, and realize the good and bads of having emotions and feelings, which he then taught Diana about. As for the actual detail of these other environments, they were great and beautiful. I really liked being able to see the Earth from a distance, and even though the beach's sunset was artificial, I couldn't help but stay and look at it for a moment. Speaking of which, The aesthetics of the cradle were so smoothing and relaxing. It really proved itself to be a sanctuary. All of the core memories and background images not only reminded Hugh of the beauty back on Earth, but they also excited Diana as she imagined all the fun she was going to have with her new friend on the blue planet. Besides the environments, the UI for this game was great too because of how simple it was. Health, guns, ammo, and Diana's hacking grid. That's all you need. Even though all those components filled the screen, they never felt overwhelming, nor did they block my view of enemies, so everything worked out great. The UI was also quite futuristic with its digital and computer like look, which blended in well with the rest of the game. The rest of the visuals were nice. They were very in line with the whole sci fi and the moon vibe of this game, but nothing else really stood out. I did want to point out that the decoy gun will sometimes pop out a fake Hue that breakdances, and other times will shadow box. Small details like that just fill me with life. I'm surprised this game doesn't have a photo mode. How cool would it have been if we could have had Diana and Hugh doing cute poses? In my opinion, it would have added even more wholesomeness to this game. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to mention about the visuals, something I've never seen in a video game before. So, you know how video games will often have a pre rendered FMV after a grand boss fight or a very significant event? Well, Pragmata is no different, as such a thing happens after the player defeats 8 and during the final boss battle, but here's what's odd about them. As these cutscenes are being played, the camera and scenery react to what's happening to the FMV. Okay, let me explain. Normally, you wouldn't see the left and right edges of my footage if you were playing this game on a widescreen display because the FMV would cover the entire screen. But since I record this with an ultra wide screen, we get to see past the perimeters of the FMV. I've never seen a game do this before, and it's kind of a shock to me because why on earth does this game do that? If Capcom knew a vast majority of players weren't going to see past the FMV borders, why optimize the scenery in a way that makes sense with the FMV? I've seen other games have their environments loaded in while an FMV was being played, but it was a static shot that didn't move because why would it? There would be nothing to see for a vast majority of players. Just wanted to bring that up because I'm not kidding when I say I've never seen that before. I don't really have much to say about this game's sound department, besides the voice acting was quite good, but I mean, to be fair, when there's really only two characters that are constantly speaking during battles and cutscenes with a few other characters thrown in here and there, I can't imagine how they could have messed that up. I will say though, I wish there was more variety in the battle dialogue between Hugh and Diana. I felt like there was like 5 different combat lines for each character, and it got repetitive real quick because they spelled their lines out pretty often. I also liked how Hugh and Diana would state their thoughts on some of the text entries players could pick up. Not only did this make the game feel immersive with how our duo interacted with their surroundings, but it also made the story easier to digest. Not that it was too complex or anything, but it made sure players interpreted the meaning of the lore entries correctly. I really like the credit song for this game. It's so emotional, especially considering how Diana's gonna have to travel alone for a little bit, or at least until Hugh can get back to Earth and find Diana. The piano and vocals were so beautiful. Otherwise, Pragmata's sound design isn't too much to write home about. Not that anything was boring or bad, it's just not a lot about it really stuck out to me. Well, that's everything I wanted to talk about with Pragmata. Well, on the surface, it seems as though this game got its high praise due to the two very well written characters. It's so much more than that, thanks to its amazing gun gameplay, fun main and side missions, a wide range of stuff to collect, and beautiful environments. Pair that on with other small but significant details, and I'm sold. There's just something about playing a game where the main character is a dad or father figure looking out for their kid that's just so appealing. Well, I haven't played any other game from 2026. I think a lot of other games this year are going to have a hard time competing against it due to how much is going for it. Even though I'm excited to play the Fatal Frame 2 remake, Silent Hill Townfall, A Plague Tale Resonance, and Wolverine, I really always see the latter being able to dethrone this game as my favorite game of 2026. Okay, that's it for now. I want to thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope you have an amazing day.